Hi everybody, it's Vivek here from Meaningful Ideas, and I'm in the car driving, so I'm not looking at my phone. I'm just going to talk, and you can just stare at the roof of my car until I get where I'm going. Today I wanted to talk about being a model, and I know it's kind of weird just staring at the ceiling, but I want to talk about this because I've really put a lot of effort and a lot of deep thought into being a model for my kid. Because I really wanted her to learn values and lessons from me in an organic way, in a way that didn't feel like she was being lectured to, didn't feel like she was being told what to do, didn't feel like she was wrong when she didn't do it. I wanted her to learn in a way that really uplifted her and made her feel like the learning she was doing was her own. So I really love modeling because it's such an inspiring thing. And what happens when we teach through modeling, when we teach through things that help our kids learn from their own experience and their own processing, the lessons become their own. And I think this is one of the most beautiful things we can offer kids, is for the lessons to become their own, for the lessons to become part of who they are rather than taken from the outside in. And I had an experience of that this morning, and that's what made me want to talk about modeling, because it's just, I don't know, I just find it such a beautiful thing, and I see it reflected in my kid all the time. So, for example, this morning my daughter was talking about going hiking. She's going hiking with her girlfriend, and the two of them are making all these plans and coming up with campsites and doing all this stuff, and I'm very excited for her. She's 23 and she's going to go camping and she's going to have a good time. And it's a good kind of solitary activity to go to. So then, flashback to 2012. In 2012, I was invited to attend a martial arts conference in the UK. I am a martial artist. I've been doing martial arts for 30 years. And up until about 3 years ago, I was teaching martial arts all the time, and I was fairly well known in the martial arts community, and so I don't talk about it much, but I was my name had some notoriety, I think, as a martial arts teacher and practitioner. And so a few years ago, I got invited to go to the UK, all expenses paid, for a martial art conference that was happening, that they were also filming, going to turn into a reality show, which never happened. But the trip did happen, and the conference happened, and we were out there training and did some amazing, excellent training, really hardcore stuff. I was training with people from all around the world, Secret Service people and prison guards and cops and private security and all these like really high quality, well-known martial artists. And then there's me. They call me the tie-dye ninja because, I'm not a tough guy. I'm cool. I'm relaxed. I'm me. I treat martial artists that I'm punching with the same kindness and love that I treat kids when I'm working with them. So, it's hard to pin me down when you're like looking for a tough guy. But I'll still break your nose if I have to. So, I was at this martial arts. I was going to this martial arts thing, and I've never really been like tremendously in shape. So I decided I needed to get really in shape before I went. So I started, for about 3 months ahead of time, I started exercising really intensely. Jogging, there was this hill in my area, and I would jog up and down the hill, and I was doing push-ups, and got to the point where I was doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats a day, which for me is astonishing because I don't do anything near that now. But back in 2012, I really got myself in one of the best shapes of my life. And at the time, I was telling my kid, and I was saying it humorously, but I actually meant it, that my goal was that I would not be the least in shape person there. That was my only goal. If I was at least the second least in shape person, I'll be happy. I didn't need to be the first. I didn't even need to be the second. I just wanted to be minimum second last. And so, and I really, whenever I think about that, it makes me laugh because it's very funny. And it's like it's competitive, but it's like a very low level, low key competitive. And, but I worked really hard to get there. And I was like, the second or third least in shape person when I got there, because I was with all these like athlete and fighter people. And so that happened. And then this morning when my daughter was talking about her hiking trip, she started talking about how she's been exercising and jumping rope and practicing because she always wants to at least be the second least in shape. And she said, I don't want to be the last. I want to be at least the second last. And I was like, that's such a great thing, kiddo. And I remember talking to her about that from 8 years ago, and just hearing her say that with the same humor and the same kind of joy and the same motivation to work really hard to improve herself, but without the pressure. It was just so wonderful. All right, I am now, hi. I just pulled up at my mom's place, and there, that's her building. And yeah, so that's what happened. It was really beautiful. It was really powerful. Just feeling her repeat something from 12 years ago. It showed me how she made it her own, right? It wasn't just that she thought it, because I haven't heard her say that a lot, but she loved the idea and she made it her own. And I could have, so that's why, when I see that from 12 years ago, it amazes me. And I think that was why I wanted to talk about modeling today, because modeling is so powerful and so important. So when I model with my kid, there's different kinds of modeling that I do. And I think that's really, if we can understand or even be aware of the different kinds of modeling that we can do, then it allows us to do it more consciously. It allows us to do it more intentionally, which I think is really important and really powerful. And so one of the things I like to do is I like to think of the different areas that I model, right? So one of the places that I model, one of the areas I model is how I treat myself. And because she's watching, right? So she's watching me treat myself. She's watching me interact with myself, how I talk to myself, how I respond to mistakes, how I celebrate victories and joys, how I deal with disappointment, how I deal with success, how I interact with other people, how I'm interacting with them when we're out interacting with strangers, how I interact with my partner. But all the things I confused the categories. That's how I treat other people. That's interacting with other people. But this is just how do I treat how do I treat myself, right? And that is, I think, one of the most powerful things that we model for our kids, how we treat ourselves. And then the second section is, how do I treat my kid? So all my interactions with her, they're having an effect on her, and I'm also modeling, the philosophy of life that I'm going to live from, the philosophy of what human relationships are about, and how communication works, and all this stuff, and how to give feedback, and how to receive feedback, and how to apologize, and how to receive apologies, and how to analyze what's going on in our lives, and all the different ways that I interact with her, how to set boundaries, how to receive other people's boundaries. There's so much, right? So there's so much, and we model for our kids by interacting with them how human relationships are. And they learn it that way. They certainly do. And it's one of the prime ways they learn about human relationships is how we treat them. And then the third category of modeling is how we treat other people. And so that's why I got confused with when I started talking about the grocery person checking out the grocery. I was just at the grocery store, and I was talking to the person and making them laugh, and she was sharing her thoughts with me about working during COVID, and really, it was really vulnerable, human, connected experience that we had. Just buying some frozen fruit, and my daughter wasn't with me, but I also think of myself as modeling even when she's not around. I think of myself as modeling because the residue of my choices stays with me even when she's not there. The residue of my choices becomes part of who I am, and modeling is part of who I am. That's how it goes, right? And I model myself. I model my beingness. So even when she's not there, I'm still thinking of myself as a model for her. And when she's with me, especially, I'm really focused on, really concentrated on how am I interacting with the people in my environment and my partner, on the phone when I'm talking to parents, and everything that I do, I'm modeling. Even when I'm going live like this, if I'm home and I know she can hear me, I know I'm modeling. And I'm very aware of the impact that me going live and talking about parenting and talking about her has on her. And if so she's in earshot, I'm really conscious of the words I choose as I say these things, because I want to do this to share information with you. But if she's listening, I'm also doing it to uplift her and empower her and share with her how I think and how I feel without her even knowing I'm doing it. So this is undercover modeling, right? So 3 areas of modeling are relationship with self, relationship with child, and relationship with environment, which are the same three areas that I talk about working with kids in general. Not surprising. It all works together. It all overlaps together. I'm just keeping an eye out for my sister. And then then we want to think about modeling in different areas of modeling. So there's the emotional modeling, how I deal with my emotions and other people's emotions. There's intellectual modeling. How do I think about things? How do I analyze things? How do I express things? You know, how do I work through things? How do I learn about things? So there's intellectual modeling. And there's spiritual modeling, if you're into that, about how you live as a spiritual person with your ethics and your goals in life and that kind of stuff, and your meditation and how you walk in the world. And then there's also practical modeling, where you model how you deal with different things like, is that for me? Do you want to be on, would you prefer not to be on camera?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here with my sister.
Hi.
Say hi. That's my sister. And, ooh, that looks good. Is that for me?
No.
Oh, too bad. And, okay, great. Beats. When we're live, it's beats. And, right. So modeling emotionally, I'm going to start doing, okay, my sister's giving me stuff to give to my daughter. So I'm going to do a little bit of grocery loading while, here, let me put this down here while I'm talking to you, if that's okay. So, well, even if it's not okay, I'm still doing it. Right, so emotional, intellectual, physical too, how, you know, like even how we move makes a difference. You know, our kids learn about movement from how we move. They learn about thinking from how we think. They learn about so much about life from us. So we have 3 areas of modeling and 3 focuses of modeling: self, other, and child. So the other thing is the different types of modeling.
These have bacon in it, you know that?
What? Oh no, potato and bacon.
I just ate them last night.
Okay, those are for you then.
Thanks.
Oh no. My mom wanted pierogies, but I got ones with bacon. I didn't realize. Oh, I'm sorry, Mom. Oh well, no bacon for you. No pierogies for you, Mom. Everything's kind of mixed in, so we'll have to organize it. All right. So the last part. Well, it's not the last. It goes on forever, actually. But the last part, the next part I want to talk about is something I call modeling out loud. So modeling out loud is where we don't just do the modeling, which is, you know, a lovely thing to do. Yes, it's all mixed in. I didn't separate it. Yeah, we'll have to do it upstairs.
She's gonna get mad.
Modeling out loud. That's okay. Modeling out. That just went on out loud. Modeling out loud is when we model something, we do it for them, and then we say that we did it. So, for example, when I was exercising all the time I was exercising and everything, and there's money in this one. There's money in that one for Shivani. I was exercising and working really hard, but I was also talking about it. Every day I would come home and I'd say, you know, this exercising stuff is really hard, but I'm doing it because it's really great for me and it's really going to help me in my life and I'm going to have a much better time. And then I would just go on about delayed gratification and talk about it and talk about all the lessons that I would want to teach. Thank you for your patience, everybody. I appreciate it. It's funny, like at this point, doing this, going like this, I haven't really apologized because I don't feel bad about it. Life is life, and we have to flow with life sometimes. These kind of things happen. I've done a lot of work on myself over the decades to not really feel, not to destroy myself emotionally when I make mistakes, when things don't work out, when I can't, like here I'm committed to doing this live every week, and sharing ideas with you. And yet today it didn't quite work out. I mean, I'm here, but it didn't quite work out. It was all kind of messy. But to feel bad about that, to not give myself the grace that this is life sometimes, that's really, it's natural. We all do that to some degree or another. But honestly, throughout my life, I find myself getting more and more tired with self-condemnation, more and more tired with guilt and self-deprecation, and because it doesn't lift me up, it doesn't lift anyone else up, it doesn't empower. There's a way we can think that it's, we're taking responsibility or accountability, but feeling bad isn't really doing that, because then accountability is accountability for your impact on other people. But when I'm feeling bad, it's the impact on me I'm really focused on, because it's me feeling bad, and that's what I'm focused on. And so then if I apologize or I make amends, I'm doing it to ease the feeling that I have of my remorse. I'm trying to ease it, which it's not a bad thing to do. If I'm in pain, I'd like to ease it. But I don't want to use my apology to you to ease my pain. Does that make sense? My apology to you is for you. And so I want to do my own work. And so, I had to, doing this work of not feeling terribly bad when you can't deliver or you make a mistake or things don't go exactly as you planned, is a lot of work, because there's many, many years of programming that goes into having us think that way. And modeling, like so much of the modeling. Neither of my parents were graceful to themselves, when they hurt themselves or something like that. Tired of self-condemnation, right? Yeah. Ha! Pah! Goodness. So modeling out loud is when you do the thing and then you talk about the thing. And modeling out loud is one of my most favorite things to do. And the beautiful thing about modeling out loud is it doesn't feel like a lecture. If it feels like a lecture, it's a lecture. It's not modeling out loud. But modeling out loud doesn't feel like a lecture, because you're not telling the other person what to do. You're not even suggesting to the other person what to do. You're sharing with them what you do or did and why. What's the impact? What's the motivation? How are you thinking about it? How does it make you feel? How does it make the other person feel? There's so many different things that we can talk about when we're modeling. So I will, for sure, 100%, I'm going to go home. When I go home later on today, I'm going to tell my kid, I'll say, hey, kiddo, I was still driving home from the grocery store when it suddenly became 4 o'clock. And my family all knows 4 o'clock, from 4 to 5 on Thursdays and Fridays. Vivek is busy. And I said, I was still driving home, and I put my phone on facing the ceiling so I wasn't distracted while I was driving. I just did a thing. I'll tell her the story. And then I'll tell her the story about how I didn't really apologize for the fact that the whole beginning of this live was really messy. And I'll tell her that, and I'll tell her that people were very supportive, and I'll tell her that I was kind to myself, and that I acknowledged the challenge for the other people, and I did my best to overcome the challenge for the other people as soon as I could. But I didn't let myself feel bad about it. And I'll tell her that, and I'll say, and then I felt so good about the fact that I was able to do that because I've been working so hard, Because of course I want to pass that on to you, kiddo. I want to pass it on to you that you don't feel bad when you are in a situation like that too. And that's why I work so hard on it for myself. And then I got to share it with the parents, and I told them about it because I love to model out loud for the parents. So I'll model out loud the fact that I was modeling out loud the fact that I was doing this thing for you, and I'll tell her that whole story when I go home. That's the modeling out loud. Doing it here with you is modeling, in the absentee modeling that I talked about, but telling her the story is the modeling out loud. And sometimes, the garbage truck is all over me, and sometimes, and sometimes the modeling out loud happens at the time when you're actually interacting with the kid too, right? So let's say, I'll give you another example because I do it all the time. So let's say the other day, my daughter was working on something and she told me about what she was working on. I immediately threw a bunch of suggestions at her. And she said, oh, okay. And she turned around and she kind of went to her room. And I could tell from the energy that I had jumped in with solutions, telling her what to do, telling her how to do it, telling her how she should think. Not aggressively, but still, like, she's 23. She could figure it out. And I was jumping in. And she wasn't asking for help. I didn't ask her if she wanted help. I got excited about what she was telling me, and I just threw a whole bunch of stuff at her. It was really... She didn't like it. I could tell she didn't like it. It's just human relationships. We can't be perfect all the time in our relationships. And so in human relationship, we will do things that the other person doesn't like all the time. With my kid and I, we do things that the other doesn't like all the time. But we've worked really hard to create sustainable, stable patterns of reconnection, of communication, of repair, so that we can always move through those things. That's what it really is about. Every time you get into a conflict, it's an opportunity to build a pattern of reconnection, of communication, of repair, and so like, and dealing with ourselves too. Like when we do something that might upset our kids, we can feel really upset about ourselves. Oh, what have I done? I've hurt my child. I want to always love my child and do everything for them, and I've hurt them. Oh, but then we're like, I'm like, then I want to project all that onto them, right? So yeah, of course, we're all going to hurt our kids. Let's love ourselves for it. Let's forgive ourselves for it. Let's learn from it. Let's try harder. Let's acknowledge we're probably going to do it again anyways, because life is learning and learning is imperfect. One of my one-liners is, relationships aren't about being perfect. They're about being imperfect together. I forget that sometimes. We all forget that sometimes. And then I expect, when we expect something from the people in our lives and then we don't get it, there's this huge disappointment. And that can be really painful. So then my daughter wasn't happy about it. So then I messaged her later, and I said, like, later meaning like 30 seconds later, I said, hey kiddo, I recognize that I was dumping a bunch of information on you and solutions on you, and you didn't really ask for it. You know what you're doing, and I didn't really need to do that. And of course, if you ever want my ideas, I'd love to give them to you, because I just got really excited and it all kind of spewed out. But I'm sorry for that. And sometimes, and then I talked about it a little bit afterwards when I went to see her. I said, sometimes we just fall back on old patterns, and patterns get to us. And that was one of my patterns, which I've mostly changed, but you can see patterns still come out. And it was so interesting because she was a little upset at me. But later that day, after that apology and that acknowledgement of the impact that I had on her, later that day she was so warm with me, I was sitting on the balcony at one point, and she came out for like 20 minutes and just sat on the balcony and talked with me. Late at night, she came out of her room and came and sat with me, and she found all these different reasons to come and spend time with me. I think she felt really seen and really touched by that. I mean, we're always warm and affectionate with each other anyways, but at this particular time, she was something shifted in her because of how I apologized, but also because I think I exposed my process. Modeling out loud is very much about exposing your process. It's very much about exposing who you are And, oops, hold on a sec. All right. It's really about exposing who you are and exposing your process, exposing your learning, exposing your vulnerability, when I say exposing your learning, right? Like it's like you do something and you look at it and you learn from it and you feel and you emote, and then you offer that process to your child so they can see your process and they can take parts of it for themselves. I often hear my daughter say, I used to think this, and then you said this to me that time, and it really made me think, and then I changed the way I was thinking about it, And I have that experience with young people all the time because I offer suggestions in a way. This is the other thing. Okay, wait. This is the other thing I wanted to mention. Now, when I'm modeling for kids, I'm always trying to model in such a way that gives the message that this thing that I'm modeling will make your life better, will make you happier, will get you more of what you want. Because when we are modeling from don't do this because it'll hurt other people, don't do this because it's wrong, don't do the wrong thing, don't do the hurtful thing, doesn't have a very deep impact, It's like trying to avoid pain, doesn't have a huge impact. Trying to seek towards healing, wholeness, connection, respect, and, belonging, that has a powerful impact. So I try and word and frame and demonstrate my modeling in such a way that shows how it's uplifting and nourishing and healing and making me more whole. And, even if it's telling her that when I cry, I try not to hold back and just let myself cry. Because it's really important to feel our feelings deeply. And I'll tell her that. And I'll say I did it, and then I'll say the principle is our. So this is the thing, right? So wait, let me do one point at a time. So the next point is about modeling in such a way that it's focused on increasing the quality of our lives, uplifting ourselves, uplifting our children. So that when they're hearing it, they're like, oh, I can see how that would make my life better. I can see how that would make that kind of situation better. I can see how that would make it easier for me in those situations. I can see how that I would learn something that way about myself. And they can really, that's what you want them to say that. You want them to feel that. Oh, I can see how that would make sense for me to take some of that or think about that, right? And like one time, my daughter told me that when she would make a mistake, sometimes she would come down on herself really hard. And then she heard me talking on a live, which I also came and talked to her about after, modeling out loud, where I talked about, instead of criticizing myself for my feelings, I try and feel them deeply so that I'm not ignoring them, and then I try and understand them. Because if I understand the message they have for me, they're not destroying me, they're not punishing me, they're informing me, and they're uplifting me, and they're actually my partners in my evolution. Oh, imagine your feelings being your partner in your evolution, right? What a beautiful thing. So I talked to her about that, and then she told me, like, maybe it was when we were doing the podcast or something, but she told me at some point, not too long ago, she said, yeah, I used to do that, but then I heard you say that, and I was like, yeah, that's a much better way to deal with it. I'm going to start really accepting my emotions deeper and thinking about them and really letting myself feel them so I can understand them. And now, instead of punishing myself for them, I really think about them and I feel them and I love myself for them, and they always show me something about myself and I learn from them. And she, she was really clear about the fact that she got that from the modeling out loud. She doesn't call it that, but that was her experience. So if you want to teach your kids certain values, if you want to teach your kids certain ways of interacting with other people, certain ways of interacting with themselves, modeling is one of the most profound things that we can offer them. One of the most profound ways that we can teach them these things, share this kind of information, and share it in a way that it goes inside, that it becomes part of who they are. I'm always, I mentioned this in the beginning, I'm always thinking of how I'm modeling. Whether my daughter is with me or not, I'm always thinking of how I'm modeling. I'm not always a good model, There are areas of my life where I suck. Let me talk about the next point about modeling. So the next point about modeling out loud especially, is where we take... So let's say you do something, you have an experience, and you want to model how you go through it. and you want to model out loud. So there's a particular way. I'm going to write this out at some point and share it. But there's a particular way that if you share it in a particular order, it has the most direct impact on how kids can absorb it. So what I like to do is I like to talk about what happened, the situation, the actions that were taken, the choices that were made. And then from that, I talk about the impact, the feelings that I had, what's behind it, right? The feelings that I had, the motivation of why I did it, the fears that I may have had, the hopes that I may have had when I was a bad model. Right. Driving is what I was talking about. I used to be, in my younger days, I was a very angry driver. And someone cut me off and I would yell and scream and swear and honk. And I don't do that anymore, but I used to. And I know as she was growing up in her formative years, so a lot of the modeling she got was that, unfortunately, which meant that I know a lot of that went into her subconscious. And so she has that awareness of the pain, the anger of that. Thank you, my friends, for the reminder. And it's in her, it's part of her. I could spend all my time feeling bad about those kind of things. The modeling I did that wasn't as as effective as it could have been. But that's not going to help. Instead, I just work every day at being a better model. But sometimes the modeling that we do is it's damaging to our kids. That's just life, because we're flawed. We're imperfect. We can't be perfect models. So that's why one of the main models that we offer our kids is ourselves as evolving beings, constantly evolving, constantly learning, constantly growing. And if we do that, that's one of the best things that we can do. I made a mistake, and here's what I'm learning from it. And here's an example. And there's another modeling, right? So I make a mistake and I learn from it. And then I'm going to point out the times that the learning comes up. Hey, yesterday, when I gave you all that advice, today when you told me this thing, I wanted to give you the advice, and I remembered, and I saw myself. I had an observation moment, and I didn't. And I asked you first, and you said no. And you said, no, actually, I'm okay. And then you came out twice, and you asked me for help, and I was so happy because you asked me when you needed it. And so I really was able to take that learning from the day before and apply it like the very next day. And so I felt good about that for myself. And I'm just like having a moment of celebration with you. So I'll tell her that, because then I'm modeling out loud. I'm modeling the process of reconnection. I'm modeling the process of my own thinking. And I'm exposing it to her. And it's kind of like an undercover follow-up apology too, because, I always say that an apology is not a statement, it's a relational process. A relational process means it's the process of our evolving, blossoming, continuously moving, changing, shifting relationship. And so, making an apology on one day, but following it up with, how you behave, with the modeling out loud, pointing out the examples of how you're learning the thing, because you're modeling, you're sharing the apology, but you're modeling the sharing of the apology at the same time. So many layers, right? When we see the different layers, you do the thing, you model the thing. Right, so let me go back to the process of modeling out loud. So first you share what the experience was, and then you share behind the scenes what the motivations were and the feelings were. You can talk about the impact that it had, and then you generalize. After that, you generalize. What is the generalized topic that we're talking about? For example, I would tell her the story of this live, of being unprepared at the beginning, the feelings that came up, and the way I relaxed and I trusted myself and I accepted myself, and how everybody was supportive of me, and it was a beautiful community. And I'll tell her what happened in the feelings, and then generalize. So the generalize is, and you know what this makes me think? This makes me think of the idea of self-acceptance. And it really helped me to really deepen in my understanding of self-acceptance. And then I get general, even more general, because I go from I to we. Because when we accept ourselves, even when we make mistakes, life is so much easier, so much more pleasant, even for the other people, because our apologies sound more reasonable. But see, the thing is, at this point, it's not a lecture, because I'm talking about my learning and my experience, but I've still gone from the specific to the general. Right, and back in the old days of my facilitation days, back in the 90s, I was a lead facilitator for an international development organization called Canadian Crossroads International. And I performed trainings all over the country. I haven't talked about this much, but I performed trainings all over the country, and I designed and redesigned all their trainings for them, and I trained the trainers, and I trained the trainers of the trainers. And back in those days, they would talk about this kind of thinking as when you're processing something. I'm talking about it in relation to sharing and modeling, but it can also be used in terms of processing. So when I would share how I would be processing something, it would be, there's 3 stages. The short form is 3 stages: is what, so what, and now what, which I also taught my daughter years and years and years and years and years ago. And that's why, and that's what I'm talking about, right? So what is, you describe what happened. So what is, you describe I wish I had come up with that, but I didn't. So what is where you describe the behind the scenes stuff, the feeling, the pain, the motivation, the joy, the impact, that kind of stuff. And then you generalize, which is also part of so what. You generalize. I guess what is kind of the emotions and stuff too. That's what happened. Then the generalization is so what. So what? Why are you telling me this story? So what? I'm telling you this story because this principle and this principle was at work and this principle was at work. First thing to do is to forgive yourself, because forgiving yourself brings you to a place of love and peace and centered. So you're not trying to get forgiveness from your kid, because that's not their responsibility. Let them have their emotions. When you forgive yourself, then you can go in centered and calm and honest and vulnerable. It doesn't mean not honest and vulnerable. I still feel bad that I hurt you, but I don't feel like I'm a bad person and I need to be punished because of it. That's the difference. I'm coming to you because I want to repair, not because I want to get punished, not because I feel like I'm bad. I'm coming to you because I want to reconnect and I want to deepen our relationship, and I want you to see my heart and see my motivation, you know? And not because I need it from you, but because because I care about our relationship. And the healing for myself, I do for myself. Or I do in therapy, or I do with friends, or I do with other people, or I do through art and journaling and dance and whatever. But I'm not dumping it on the person I'm apologizing to, specifically. And so there's what, there's now, there's so what, there's what, there's so what, and then there's now what. And now what is when we apply the generalization. So you take the generalization and then you apply it to your life, right? And the apply can come over time too, right? That's why I said, hey, look, I learned that lesson yesterday about watching my mind, how I jump in, and I applied it today. Wonderful. So you have what, so what, now what. Yeah? You take the experience and you process, you look at what happened, then you look at the factors that are involved in it, the emotions, the circumstances, you look at the impact that it had on people, what are the different impacts, then you look at the generalization, what's the general philosophy and ideas that come up from this example, and then you apply it. How can we apply this? Oh, it might apply to this situation, it might apply to this situation, and if we change it a little bit, it might apply to this situation. And so if you can think about that, what, so what, now what, express the thing, come up with the generalizations, and then explore how you can apply it. There's a beautiful system for modeling, a beautiful structure for modeling out loud. And it takes some time. Like, I would write that stuff down and really think about it. Me, it's kind of second nature now, but I mean, like, it's 3 decades of practice, you know, three decades of anyone practice something for 3 decades, they're going to get reasonably good at it, you know? And I mean, practice every day. Like, I practice all the time, maybe not every day, but I mean, almost every day. Cause I mean, this is about interacting with myself. This is about interacting with the people in my life. And I do that. Every day I interact with myself, and almost every day I interact with other people in my life. So the opportunity to practice is always there. And so, yeah, so I think this is a good introduction to modeling, you know, where we take, it's what, so what, and now what, just so that it rhymes. So I started talking about the categories of modeling, which is relationship with self, how you treat yourself, how you treat your kid, how you treat others in your environment. And then I talk about the layers that we model on, the emotional layer. So how am I interacting emotionally with myself, with my child, with others? Intellectual thinking, how am I thinking things? How am I processing things? And then, you know, if I take what, so what, and now what, then what do I if I want to model thinking something through? So what? This happened in the news. So what? And it brings up these different topics. And it brings up this generalization, this idea of fairness, this idea of equity. And now what? And now how can we apply that idea to other areas of life, right? Yeah, so intellectual, emotional, material or practical, physical in your movement, and how you relate to your environment, which is also mental, emotional, and physical, and also spiritual, if that's a thing for you. And you're I'm very much into spiritual. I don't talk about it a lot, but I'm very much into spirituality, meditation, and the divine, and all that kind of stuff. And I never wanted to push. I remember going to religious classes when I was young and just hating it, you know? And it just, blah. And so I never wanted to do that to my kid. And I also wanted to share the value I have around these things with her in a way that she could absorb it and make it her own and fit it into her own life path in a way that makes sense to her. I was really, really careful never to push her. You know, like we say a little prayer every time I eat that comes from the Bhagavad Gita. And every time I eat, I say it. I've never asked her to say it, and she's never said it. But every time I say it, she's quiet. She'll eat. She doesn't I don't don't eat until I'm finished my thing. I let her do anything she wants. And if she's ever asked, I always say, kiddo, this is my practice. This is my way of connecting to the food. And recognizing it as a gift from the universe, you know, this is what works for me. You do that in any way that matters, in any way that works for you. So notice even there I'm modeling out loud, right? I'm modeling out loud. I'm saying what I'm doing. Then I didn't even notice I did it. I just did it now. Then I generalized connection to the universe. And then I offered her a way to apply it. I said, you can do that any way that works for you. I didn't say you could do that if you want. You can connect yourself to the universe. I kind of snuck that in. I said, you can do that any way that works for you. It doesn't have to be the way I do it. So then she'll think, oh, well, what's my way of connecting to the universe, right? And you know, earlier this year, I did a parenting workshop in Hamilton, which is a town about an hour away. I did a parenting workshop in Hamilton at a alternative education conference, and that is actually up on my YouTube channel. And on the way home, I got really frustrated because all these people were driving badly and cutting me off, and we almost got into an accident, and I was really tense. And when we got home, my kid said, and she came with me, she always comes to my parenting workshops. And when we came home, she said to me, oh, Dad, I think what we really need to do is let's get together and let's all breathe together as a family. Let's just breathe for 30 seconds together so you can calm down. And then if we're breathing with you, it'll help you to calm down. And in my head, I'm thinking, did my daughter just suggest family meditation? After 23 years of meditating and never telling her to meditate, she suggested family meditation. So we did it, and then she said, I think I'm terrible for following up. I should have followed up more. We've only done it a few times. But she said, we should do this every week. We should do a family quiet time, she called it. We should do family quiet time every week. And inside, I'm just hooting and hollering and jumping around thinking, wow, it works. Modeling really works. Because it was her suggestion 100%, right? Yeah. And, okay, so I don't want to blame myself for not following up. I have to be careful now because it just happened, right? I blamed myself a little bit. I noticed it. I didn't follow up. Honestly, I haven't followed up. I was so excited and then I didn't follow up. What the fuck, right? You hear how it's coming out of me right now. I'm just letting it come out naturally so you can see it. It's like, what the fuck, Vivek? This is my tone. You had this desire all these years to meditate with her. Then she opens the door to meditate. You don't take it. What's your problem? Well, why would you do that? You know, why would you sound? So this is how I sound in my head when I'm criticizing myself, right? This is how I sound. And that voice, it comes and I hear it so clearly. But I don't let it have its way anymore. You know, I let you see it because I want you to hear how it sounds for me. And I maybe tone down a little bit because I don't want to scare anybody. But but that's the voice that's in my head. Do you have a voice in your head like that? What does your voice sound like? You know, it's good to become, it's effective. I don't like the word good. It's effective and helpful. to become familiar with that voice, so that when you hear it, you know it and you can identify it. Like I just did. I was like, I know that voice. No. I'm stopping. In the middle of the call, in the middle of talking to all of you, I'm just stopping because I don't want to let that go untended, right? Vivek, you did your best. You know, you were excited about it and you didn't follow through. But it's not the only thing that's happened to you in your life. So many things have been like that. And you're not a bad person for doing that. And you're not weak for missing that opportunity. I love you, Vivek. I love you and I forgive you. And I don't want you to hold that, you know? And it's not too late. It's not too late, honey. It's not. You know, it's the perfect time, actually, because you're ready. You weren't ready then. You couldn't have contained it then, probably. You know, it's okay. Trust the process of your life, Vivek. Trust that when you do things that aren't in alignment, it's okay. It's part of your process. You can't be perfect, little man. I love you. And now I'm thinking, so then I think, okay, well then, if I'm going to make up for the mistake, I have to make sure I go home and do suggest the family meditation right now. But if I do that, it's going to come out with the guilt. It's going to come out with the shame because I'm feeling it, right? So I know enough now not to do it today. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to heal from it a little bit. I'm going to feel those feelings and go back into that memory and meditate on it. I mean, I'm actually going to do this, because if I don't actually do this, I won't get to the other side of the resilience of the emotional processing. And I won't be, now that I've noticed it, now that I saw it, because I hadn't seen it, it's been months. When did I do that? When did I do that workshop? I don't even know, but months ago, way before COVID, right? And, maybe it was last summer or something. It was the one that was how to help your kids form a lifelong relationship with learning. And so months later, those emotions are still in me. So taking a little more time to work them through, so that when I do go to her, and I want to find a natural way to do it, where it's like, so it doesn't sound like I'm like intensely trying to push this meditation thing. So find a moment, find a situation, clear my emotions out, and then one day in the near future, I'll go, you know, this feels like a good time for one of those 30-second family quiet times you had suggested we do a few months ago. We never really did it, but I love that idea. Well, let's do one today. What do you think? And if she says no, not today, I'll be like, yeah, okay, well, let's keep an eye out for it tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow will be good. And she's like, yeah. Usually she'll go, yeah, let's keep an eye out for tomorrow. And then at some point we'll do it. But for me, really, honestly, I need that time to like center first. And then I'll be able to do it. So, yeah. Modeling. And we're modeling to ourselves too, right? So, my friends, please think about what I shared with you today. Please, if you have a chance to share some of your thoughts and reflections, what stood out for you, what challenged you, what felt good. I would love to hear that from you in the comments. And tag anyone you think that could be helped by this. Thanks for listening. Really, if you notice that you're not modeling as well as you want to be, don't come down on yourself from it. And at the same time, really think about how you can continuously deepen your modeling experience, your modeling capacity, and look for different ways, look for different things, and just really embrace that. And I think that'll make a big difference in how your children respond to you, and the effectiveness with which you can pass on values and share and guide, you know? So many people, when they hear about gentle parenting principles, they think, oh, it's absentee parenting and it's permissive parenting and kids don't learn. But it's the exact opposite, you know, it's the exact opposite. I mean, just listen to this hour that I've been talking about how deeply the co-learning relationship is in this path. It's so profound, you know, and it's continuously evolving. So, and this is one of the most beautiful ways that we do pass on things. And the beautiful thing is modeling is mutual, because our kids, if we have the eye for it, modeling is mutual, because we can learn from everything our kids do all the time, you know. I learn from kids all the time. All right, on all the levels, right? Emotional, mental, practical, spiritual, the whole bit. All right. I love to you all, friends. Enjoy the rest of your day. I wish you all the best, and peace out.